to do all of that again, sir? Can I just say how absolutely beautiful you look? I mean, let's be honest. We have not seen each other for almost 2 years. I see there are some beautiful new hairdos. There's some makeup that hasn't been used for the last 2 years. I see there are some new beautiful hats and color coordination. I also know that some of us have had some additional family members that's come along. So we congratulate you on your new babies and your new family additions. But most importantly, colleagues, beautiful women, today is your celebration. The celebration of being a woman, for whatever a woman means to you. For being a sister, and not just sisters to your family members, but sisters to us within the faculty. Because one thing we have learned in COVID-19 is to rely on one another. Most importantly, to rely on the people that's closest to you, within your department, your next door neighbor, and of course those on MS Teams, we have not forgotten. But also, moreover than a sister, you are a mother. Whether you have your own children, where you are mothering your family's children, or of course, for those of you who are spouses, who have partners, being the rock, being that stable person within your family. So today, our faculty, our esteemed dean is here, and I also have to convey the apologies of Professor Desiree Scholz and Professor Renita Rampersad, who unfortunately has to join the quality assurance meeting on the Belleville campus. But with that, my lovely ladies, we are going to take lots of photos. So let me first get the admin under the way. First and foremost, you need to blog or take photos or tweet or Twitter or Insta or whatever those fancy terminologies are. I have been informed that Miss Harker, where's Miss Harker? Where's the beautiful new IT coordinator? There she is. She is going to create for us a SharePoint link for Women's Day. So you can take all the photos that you want. They are going to provide us with a link, and you are going to upload your link on SharePoint. And then Sandra is going to create a beautiful portfolio to celebrate our day, which of course we're going to include in our performance annual review for quality assurance purposes. On another note, all of the drinks and the foods you'll see from our beloved students will be free of charge, but any additional things or any, preferably, not alcoholic, because the dean is here, of course, and we have directors here, of course, so any of those types of activities will be on your own account. So ladies, today's theme is #BreakTheBias. So that we can enjoy a world that's free of stereotypes, free of discrimination, and free of anything that you feel binds you to an identity or to a word that you are uncomfortable with. Yes, we are celebrating Women's Day, but that can mean many different things for many different people. And you are welcome to our Faculty of Business of Management Sciences Women's Day event. And with that official welcome, I want to call upon our Dean, Professor Paul Green, to provide you with a welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I stand behind the podium here? In my previous life, I was on Fundis, so I feel comfortable. Is this one working? No. Must I use this one? I can use this one? Thank you. Thank you. So let me start by firstly thanking the program director, and I don't think in my 26 or 27 years in higher education have I been in a venue where I'm totally surrounded by women. I have been given 5 minutes, and I don't expect to use any additional time, but then to leave directly after that. But before I commence, I must just indicate that to all of you that are here today, you look absolutely stunning. Give yourselves a round of applause. So good morning, right? Goeiemôre. Molweni, Salam, honored guests, invited speakers, our esteemed women in the Faculty of Business and Management Sciences. As the Dean of the Faculty, it gives me great pleasure to do this warm welcome to all of you, as well as to greet you all here today and to make a few remarks. The faculty's National Women's Day event is aligned to the human-centered approach of our faculty, which is also aligned and subscribed to the vision of oneness at CPUT. And it is also there to express our deep and sincere appreciation as we have for all our amazing women in our faculty. And by that I am making reference to the women that are seated here, as well as the women that are joining us via the online platform. So let me start by reminding you all on this occasion of the values of our faculty. So we've taken the acronym of Faculty of Business and Management Sciences, and we have aligned to an acronym whereby F stands for fairness. B, we take advantage of us being the biggest faculty within the university, and so we express ourselves by being bold. M is that subscribing to the standards of being moral. And finally, that of S, in that in everything that we do is to be sincere. So what you are finding here today as a Faculty of Business and Management Sciences Women's Day event is just a mere expression of the values to which we subscribe to as a faculty. And I also want to say, in acknowledgement of the significant role that is played by women and women in our faculty. Program Director, also allow me to extend a special welcome and acknowledgement to our guest speakers here today. Ms. Bettina Engelbrecht, who is the CEO of Clicks Group Limited, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I must just mention on a personal note, I've got a personal affiliation with Clicks that besides doing all our shopping at Clicks, but when I started off studying, my first part-time job was at Clicks stores. So I started as a packer in Durban, on the Durban beachfront, and that was my first holiday job, Clicks. So thank you very much. So I was excited when I saw Clicks. I wanted to shout, you pay less, but let's carry on. And then also I saw Vusi Vukwana. Now, Vusi and I have met before, and I was just so excited because Vusi comes with a very rich experience and this the input from the Kasi catalyst, and Vusi, as well as Bettina, we are so blessed that you have accepted our invitation and you will join us here today. And then Nonkosi Tiolwana, the Director of the Center of Diversity, Inclusivity and Social Change. Thank you, my Director. Always accepting an invitation from our faculty and always willing to contribute, and is very mindful of the intent of the faculty in terms of driving the transformation and social cohesion agenda. Thank you so much. So this event, ladies, carries my full and humble support as we take a moment to reflect on the sacrifices, contributions, and accomplishments of all women in our society. I cannot contain myself but speak out fiercely, without favor, against the horrendous scourge of gender-based violence in our country. When is enough enough? Regrettably, We see far too many campaigns, Ms. Tiolwana. We see far too many programs, committees, policies. Yet on the other end of the continuum, we see the pain, the suffering, and oftentimes, sadly, even death of women and children. So I want to impress upon all within the faculty, all that are listening to my welcome address via the online platform, that are here today. Everyone, irrespective of your race, of your gender, your sexual orientation, your class, your disability, your language, your religion, your culture, and other related identities, to stand up and strive for a gender-equal country, a gender-equal faculty, a gender-equal university, a gender-equal world, free of bias, free of barriers, free of stereotypes, and ultimately free of any form of discrimination. Ladies, and I do see one gentleman, I do acknowledge you. I was only given 5 minutes. It's dangerous to give a dean an opportunity to speak. But ladies and gentlemen, this event is a culmination of a lot of hard work, led by an extremely able and amazing team in the faculty, and I have not been tasked to do the vote of thanks. I'm not doing that. But it'll be remiss of me not to acknowledge the contribution and the efforts of Dr. Sandra Williams, Dr. Lisa Gee, Ms. Mandisa Silo, and we also have Andiso Mkhasi, as well as Mandy Jones and Terran Krokam. Terran, where are you hiding? And Terran as well. And my apologies if I may have missed out anybody else that was on that organizing team. What I see here aligns to what I subscribe to in terms of the work we want to do within the faculty, in terms of building the whole principle of oneness, Ubuntu. So as I conclude, Program Director, let me leave you with a well-known saying in our country that stems from the eastern part of our country. Watinta bafazi, watinta mbogoto. And I believe that we are surrounded by such strong and amazing women who are ready to lead. So, Program Director, I conclude with a quote. And if anything that you can take with you today, let it be this. Today, I wish to remind you how powerful and amazing you are. You were created by God. You were blessed by God, empowered by God. Thank you for being an amazing gift. Bayadanki, Siyabonga, Shukran. Thank you.
And we do acknowledge that you need to be on your way to Belleville. Please convey 2 kisses for the VC and only 1 for Dr. Makahula for quality assurance purposes. Thank you, Prof. Bye-bye. So now, obviously, you want to know what's next on the agenda. So I need to call up Juffrou Terran Krokam to come and do some spot prizes. So without further ado, there's going to be 2 different sets of spot prizes, and this is the first one to get you energized before we embezzle your mind with all kinds of beautification and inspiration.
Thank you, Dr. Gee. Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to see all of you here. Thank you for taking the time to come out and join us. So, I'm here to give to you. Okay? That's all I'm going to do. Give. So, firstly, I want you to I want you to take your hand and feel under your chair. There should be something. Anyone? Anyone? Sorry guys, my name's not Oprah, it's Taryn. Sorry. Okay, so I've got your names over here. Unfortunately, not everyone could be here, so if I call a name and you're not here, I'm just going to continue. Joanne, Miss Ritter. Thank you so much. Please enjoy. Look at what it says on there. That's after hours. No? Thanks, everyone. Let's move on. I'll be back later. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll be back later. Okay?
So, beautiful ladies, this mic is going to be really challenging today. Obviously, because we are lecturers, we can speak, we can project. So, we have some beautiful entertainment for you, and I'm going to call upon Caitlin Krokamp. Now, obviously, I can't boast now about the HR department because we are the Faculty of Business, but I just want to inform you of the kind of caliber of jazz singers and up-and-coming celebrities that we are breeding within the HR department. So, without further ado, we are going to call upon our vocal artists. Caitlin, over to you.
Hello, my name is Caitlin. Taryn Krokamp is my mother. So she asked me to do this, and she asked what type of songs I should do. So the Women's Day theme, I chose this song. So yeah, can you please play?
Juffrou Caitlin, I am absolutely gobsmacked, never mind speechless. You have a pair of lungs on you that is absolutely marvelous. And here we're thinking, we are graduating such marvelous students, and here we have this gem right tucked in under our noses that we are clearly not aware of. But don't worry, my beautiful ladies, she will be back with our choir. But now, of course, you are all wanting to see who are the guest speakers. Just for the note, I also have a gold Clicks Club card, just putting it out there. So all these makeups and all the beautiful ladies' makeups were purchased by Clicks, So we do support all of our beautiful wholesale and retail sector because, Juffrou Andisa is going to be the queen of wholesale and retail sector. So, ladies, without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Juffrou Mandisa Silo, who is not only going to be our facilitator for our group discussion, but she is going to entice your mind so that you also can ask questions, engage with our beautiful guest speakers. And please, this is not the time to be a student and sit there quietly and be shy and, I'm too afraid to ask a question. For those of you on MS Teams, if you want to, you can type in your questions. We can also translate them from the digital age up into the actual stage. Ms. Mandisa, over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. And hello, everyone. Okay, I need a better hello than that. Hello, everybody. Fantastic. Yes, that's more like it. We're quite excited to really host the second, Women's Day function for the faculty. And I must say, personally, I'm quite thrilled. Really, when I was invited to come and host the panel discussion, initially I had no idea, who are we going to be talking to or engaging with as panel members. So when I got the three names, I really got a little bit nervous when I looked at the caliber of women that we will be engaging with today. But having said that, maybe let me start with the introductions and put those aside. I'm Mandisa. Can I really ask today that we just be on first name basis? First name basis, we all agree, ladies? Yes. Okay, the second request, let's all kick off our shoes. No, I know you understand that's not literal, right? All right, having said that, really, I think the discussions today are really in honor of you, firstly, as a wonderful woman. But I think partly they are also really in honor of the international theme of Women's Day, which is hashtag break the bias. Thank you. Let's repeat that, hashtag break the bias. I hope all the tweeting is going on and whatever else that needs to happen already. And so these discussions really had me thinking about what women really go through. And we do know that women still, and they continue to experience bias. They continue to experience discrimination. They continue to experience really prejudices and so forth. And as women, we need to start making a contribution or continuing this contribution in how we get to stop that. It is possible to stop. And I guess then this discussion today is really a contribution to that, and how we can actually get to stop this bias. And I think most importantly, this discussion will create or enhance the awareness, not only amongst us as women, because there is bias amongst us as women, but also amongst our fellow men. So that's why I'm so excited to have the three ladies with us here today. But having said that, can I ask you to really give us a warm welcome to the three ladies that are going to be our guest speakers today. I'll start with Ms. Nongosi Cholwana. If you may please come through. Vicky, can I ask you to also join us, please? Bettina, please. All right, well, having done that, now it's time to really sit down and really be comfortable. Ladies, can I ask you to really be as comfortable? Oh, this is quite low. Be as comfortable as you really can. Really, this is a conversation. It's not necessarily any formal discussion. We are here as women, and all we want to know is really understand the different experiences that we have and how we all think we can contribute really to stopping, at least making a contribution to stopping the bias against women. But before I do that, perhaps let me get the formal introductions out of the way. Now, I could take a whole hour in really reading out the resumes of the three ladies, but because of time, I'm really just going to go through the main highlights of the three ladies. And I'll start with Ms. Nongosi Cholwana. Ms. Nongosi, as initially indicated, is the director of the Center for Diversity, Inclusivity, and Social Change, which is acronymed as a CDISC, in our very own university. She's a qualified teacher and holds a Bachelor of Education, a Master's from the University of Free State in Transformation, inclusive of gender transformation, and that's also her research focus. And I will not read all other qualifications she holds. It seems to be a long list, but I am aware that she's also currently enrolled for her PhD that she's busy with. She has more than 18 years of experience in the works of gender transformation, etc. And really, she's a gem in the institution. And at that point, I want to say welcome to this panel. Welcome, ladies. Right, then next I'll go to Vusi. Vusi, it's fantastic to have you here. I must say, when I read your bio, I thought, founder of Kasi Catalyst. That's an interesting really term and organization, but I'm sure we'll get to hear more of her as we mingle later on. But having said that, Vusi really comes from the township, Ekas. That's where she stems from. And she's really been busy in terms of businesses, running that in Ilanga, Guguletu, and Nyanga, so basically the townships we have around us here. And this stemmed from her parents who owned businesses in those townships. She started, of course, in the UK, I believe also in the United States of America, and really, I think, perhaps even Europe and Asia, I'm told. But after a number of years, I think about 7 years of her being out of the country, she decided to come home. I don't know why. I would love to ask you that at some point. But she decided to come home. And really on her return, she wanted to work on more Investec and sort of bank, and Rand mentioned bank, or rather she worked with them. And she really gained a lot of insights in terms of lending in the South African context. She left the corporate world thereafter. I guess she did not get that much joy, and went into the family business, rather in the townships. She now has 20 years, really, that she can talk to in terms of the skills that we've just mentioned. And currently, she's running this organization called, I was hoping you were going to say it, Kasi Catalyst. And really, she's got so much experience to share with us. I had a moment to have a chat with her earlier, and the passion that came through around the investment and development that needs to happen in the townships when it comes to business. I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights. Wow. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you. All right, well, with all of that now out of the way, I'd like us to really start today's discussion. And perhaps I'll start with you, Vusi. Yes. And really, I would love you to tell the ladies, really, what is your understanding of breaking the bias?
So thank you very much, Manisa, and morning to everyone that's here and those at home. So I actually cringe when I have to say this out loud, but I'm actually not a feminist. And it's something that devours my soul a little bit, because it's heartbreaking to say, as a woman in 2022, that I don't believe in women's rights as a priority, right? And it stems from this understanding that as black women, we can never be fighting for women's rights without talking about the battle with, the elephant in the room, the black person's rights. So if there's no racial equality, then women's rights for us don't actually mean anything. So and I think, it's like you said, in the 7 years that I've traveled into different countries, I've experienced living in South Africa during apartheid as a black woman, going abroad, living as a black woman abroad, understanding the challenges that are still there as a woman, yes, but every time I experience any kind of discrimination, my go-to is always that I'm black first. It's never that, it's because I'm a woman that they don't want me in the space. So I find myself more sort of looking at what are the rights of a black person, as opposed to just me as a woman. And it's a struggle within me, and I don't know whether it's a curse of the generation that I come from, because we were so caught up in the boxes that were put in. Our parents were the ones who were raised during apartheid, so they also raised us with the intention to survive this environment. And it was never to be seen as women. It was always just to survive being black. And when we talk about breaking the bias, I don't even think about a conversation that I can have in clear conscience without just thinking about what could possibly make it easier for the black woman, and with the populations in the world in such a state where women are the majority, right? When I think about putting feminism first and then women are the majority population, I feel like there's an undercurrent that men are driving so that once again, it's going to be the white woman who's at the top of that totem pole. And that scares me. So for me, that's where I am. I don't know whether my kids call me a conspiracy theorist. So it might be one of the legacies of apartheid. You always think that there's an invisible hand everywhere in everything, and it's always white, and it's always male. So I'm suspicious of everything. I trust nothing. Everything they throw at us, I'm kind of like, hold on, I've seen this before. I know how this ends, So I tend to be on the outside deliberately because of the suspicions that I have of being inside the room. So yeah, it's tough.
Wow, it is. And wow, I must just say, you've mentioned so much, in this last few minutes. And when you said you don't consider yourself a feminist, I went, okay, maybe I could agree with you there. But you also touched on intersexual sort of issues. I think later on we'll speak more about that as well. But quite interesting. Thank you so much, Vusi, for those remarks. Can I ask Bettina that perhaps you share with us your understanding of breaking the gender bias?
Thank you very much. First of all, it's such a pleasure for me to be here today, and what a stunning venue that the CPUT has here in Granger Bay.
Thank you very much.
First, I would say, in March was, of course, International Women's Day. And I'm sure in many of our organizations, what we did was we stood up and we campaigned on the day, and I'm hoping ongoing, for what we could do, both individually and collectively, to break the bias. So first and foremost, the way that I understand gender bias is, first of all, that first of all, what we have to do is we must speak up and we must confront bias when we encounter it. Now, that's a very, very difficult thing to do because it requires for us to be courageous. Secondly, of course, we're not necessarily raised to speak up and to confront when we see something that is not as it ought to be. But when we do that, we provide others in that environment with an opportunity to become more self-aware, but importantly, to also say that there is nothing wrong with speaking up and speaking out for the things that we believe in. The second one, and why I started with International Women's Day, was to say we should not be pursuing agendas in an episodic manner. So the second bit for me around gender bias is that we must advocate continually in order for us to eradicate gender bias. The third one, we all either are parents or, as someone said earlier today, we raise other children or we educate others. So the important one, I think, is for us to have those conversations in our households and with our children, because we have the opportunity to nurture a generation that will be very different from the generation that we are. And let me give you 2 examples of what I mean. I had always raised my son to say that we are all equal, picking up on Vuzi's point as well around both race and around gender and the intersectionality between those. And one day we were coming, and he was still quite little, probably around about 8 or so. And he came to the door, and I came to the door, and I said to him, "You must wait for me to go in first." And he asked me why, and I said, "Because I'm a woman and you're a man." And he said, "I thought that you had taught me that whoever gets to the door first needs to go in." Now then I realized I wasn't complete in my conversations with him, because what I should have said is that there is still lingering discriminatory practices. That doesn't mean that when we both get to the door at the same time that we are equal at the point of entering the door. And I'm hoping that you understand what I mean by that, because it goes beyond equality to equity. The third one, I would just say, well, yeah, the fourth element for me around breaking the bias is that we have to do things to lift others up. And sometimes it's small little things. I think you can imagine in my role, I get a lot of invitations. Why did I accept this invitation? I accepted this invitation because of Sandra. Because in all of our engagements and in all of our connections with others, we've got to constantly think about what is it that I'm doing to affirm another person where they are. And we can do that by supporting one another. So that's what I would say to me. Breaking the bias is about confronting. It is about the role that we can play in terms of raising awareness and educating in our individual and in our collective spaces. It is about standing up for other women and affirming other women. And then I think importantly, it is about ensuring that we join networks, whether or not it's gender empowered, and I use the word broadly in terms of gender, because of course it's also about how we identify ourselves and not just biologically, but that we join those and we make sure that those campaigns are not episodic in nature, but is continuous. Thank you.
Thank you, Bettina, for that. You realize I've kept the introduction of Bettina till after her introductory remarks. And I really wanted to see, your impression. And the remarks that you have just made has really confirmed the experience that comes across not only on your CV, but basically on the bio that has been provided to us. And I must say, I honestly thought, as she's CEO, right? She's the CEO. So could a CEO really experience bias? And that question will come to you shortly. So I thought, she's the CEO. But yes, of course. So she's the CEO of the Clicks Group. And I must say, her resume is quite lengthy. She has risen through the Clicks Group, sat in obviously boards as well. And she studied law. I was trying to figure out law and clicks, but anyway, I thought she's got an LLB, and she has also been admitted as an attorney, as well. So she really comes with this tons and tons of experience in the legal field, but really as a seasoned executive, in the retail sector. And without reading all of that to you, I just thought it would be quite interesting to hear her experiences. And I think hence the first question will go to you, go to you again, Bettina. And really, at this time, I would really like you to perhaps tell us, maybe give us a few personal reflections, and I think this is to all the panelists. Let's really just be frank with the ladies today. Give us your personal reflections. Tell us at any time that stands out to you that you were confronted by gender bias. Share with us how you dealt with it then, and if ever you would perhaps, in hindsight, deal with it differently.
Thank you. I mean, I'm going to be 60 in November, so I most certainly have dealt with a lot of bias and discrimination in my lifetime. But let me deal with probably when I was thinking about the question, the one thing that we've probably all experienced, and that is being ignored. And by that I mean that we make a contribution and everybody continues with the discussion as though we had not made the contribution, and 10, 15 minutes later, a man or a white person makes that same comment, and they say, that is so insightful. That is a fantastic idea. And I would have to say that for the longest time, I wasn't sure how to deal with that. So here are two ways in which I now deal with that. The first is you can be deprecating, which is to say, I say, you know what, 10 minutes ago when I said that same thing, I probably didn't say it loudly enough, or I didn't make my point clearly enough, so thank you for my colleague for repeating it. The second one is to say to that same colleague, thank you very much for picking up on what I said. I hope that you will also credit me for stimulating your thought process. The second one, which I have no doubt that we have all experienced, is attempts or actual sexual harassment within the work environment. That is either where somebody's coming to rub up on you or they're making a comment. I've even already had examples where a male senior says, we've got to go somewhere, you're in a car with them, they then take you somewhere else and they take you somewhere else. And I have literally had somebody take their business out in front of me. And the question is, how do you respond? And that was to say, I think that you've had too much to drink, maybe you should zip it back up. And these are difficult things, I think, to say. But I also wanted to say around sexual harassment, very often we have had females in our environments tell us about examples of when they've been sexually harassed, and we said they must be making it up. So I also want to encourage you, when individuals raise that with you, I think be supportive, explain to them what the procedure is within your organization or where you are, so that you can help them. Even if their decision is not to proceed, you still have to be supportive of that individual. The third element or instance, I think, of pervasive gender bias, I have found microaggressions very prevalent within the work environment throughout my career. And those microaggressions have come from both males and females. I chose to wear pink very deliberately today because pink power to me is real. Every time when we make the decision, where are we going to shop, what are we going to buy, we have to think about ourselves in terms of individuals that have economic power, and how do we choose to spend and direct our economic power. And so we have a voice, and we've got to, I think, raise our voice. What I have found, though, is I can think of at least two instances where women who chose a different approach, which I absolutely abhor, which is to say, the way to get forward is for me to bat my eyelids, not do the work, ride on the tailcoats of others, and be soft and fluffy. My pink today is not because of soft and fluffy. It's to really affirm the point that pink power and pink economics is real, and how do we use that for good? Where women have literally gone to cry on the shoulders of a man and said, she is too harsh on me. She keeps on confronting me. I go back and say, let's talk about the facts of that particular situation. So let me factually point out to you the things that I raised with her, And then maybe let's see whether or not you agree that those were the right things or not. And then, and this is something I think that all of us have found if we've got partners or children. There was an instance where my husband came and he'd gone for an op and he was discharged and he had 10% sight and I had a one-on-one. And I asked, could the one-on-one just be shifted? I wanted to go and pick him up from the hospital and take him home. And I was told, it doesn't suit me for that to happen. So I had to leave him in the parking lot. And I went for a normal one-on-one, which happened every 2 weeks. And how should I have dealt with it differently? I should have dealt with it differently to say, can you remember, Mr. Male, when your wife stumped her toe and you said, I now have to leave because I need to support my wife? Well, I'm calling on that right now. So I also want to say we often don't give ourselves permission to ask for the things that we want or to demand the things that we want. So these are the things that I would just encourage. Do not accommodate women who choose to rely on feminine wiles rather than their efforts because they put our struggle backwards. And secondly, ask for what you want, ask for the assistance, because in my career I found there are very many people who will be more than willing to support you.
Thank you so much. I mean, as you were speaking, Bettina, I was just ticking my boxes, you know, with those incidences that you spoke to. Some quite actually, I don't know, raising some goosebumps in me. But it's quite interesting to hear the experiences, you know, and I'm hoping that you are also taking some questions down. Later on, we will have a Q&A session where you can ask 1 or 2 questions. Nongos, can I come to you? Any personal reflection, personal experience? Perhaps maybe before you start, is this mic on? Can we just check if so we're okay, we don't have to share, right? Thank you. Yes, it is. So share with us, Nongosi, your personal experience.
Thank you. Happy Women's Day. And I just want, before sharing my personal experience, I just want to remind all of us sitting here to say what you are doing today is you are following the footsteps of your forebears. Mm-hmm. You know, today we are sitting here today remembering that 46 years ago, our mothers and our grandmothers marched to Union Building to demand those the past laws. And as early as 1913, they did that. You know, our women in our own backyard, as factory workers, as domestic workers, they led. They have fought this, conceptualized the gender bias long before we were born. And they have been fighting it now. We're talking about 46 years when they were fighting about this, because I thought we must reflect on our lived experiences. The reason why we are here today is because of our forebears, our Lillian Ngoyi, our Rahima Musa, Sophie Brain, Lillian Dietrichs, Lesia Ramakaba. There are some here, so quite a number of people. So if you are doing this here today, you must know that you are standing on the foot of those gallant workers. That's my opening remarks, and saying, and as I grew up, I was also influenced by those gallant workers, those factory workers, those domestic workers. We are the product of them because of what they fought for us for us to be sitting here at CPUT, to be calling that academic women. Yes, coming to your question, Chair, please tell me if I'm taking, and just raise your hand and just say, you are.
We'll break the bias.
Yes, do that, please. Coming to my own experience, I must say, I cannot even count, it's countless microaggressions on a daily basis. We cannot talk about these microaggressions without talking about our own personal spaces, especially in the workplace, because that's where I want to base our issues. Even in meetings, coming from meetings, you see the verbal gestures of saying, trying to suppress you. Okay, let's not create dialogue. Okay, we've had that before. Okay, you know, sometimes even forming allyship with our own black sisters, our sisters, to say, okay, let's talk about this. The issues of even environmental, if you are in a meeting and they nominate, and then 5 people, and then at number 4, they said, oh, by the way, where's Mbogoto? And then we said 1. And then they said, yeah, we've won it. So you find that you are 1 woman out of 4 men. So these are the kind of issues, the issue of environmental microaggression, the issue of verbal, even in interviews, job descriptions, you see even the language they write. I want confident, self-achievement. And then you hear very big men in the panel saying, you know, she did not come out. She was not strong enough. And these are the type of language that we communicate when we draw up our adverts. And I hope our HR, you have invited your human resources, because these are the issues that really put women off. Despite the fact of, I'm bringing it home, of even experience. You want a dean with 7 years experience. 7 years ago, there was never a black deanery. So you now want a 7 years. You are already excluded. So these are the issues that we're saying. Sometimes you even look at the panel of in the recruitment. You look at them, there's no gender parity. They'll say it's employment equity. I must tell you, employment equity is not gender parity. It is just a quantitative approach. We need qualitative approach in terms of ensuring that there is gender, because we've got all these laws. We've got the Section 9 of the Constitution. We've got the CEDAW. We've signed even the Beijing, 27 years. Beijing Platform for Action was there. 67 years. The Women's Charter was signed by women from all races, or Rahima Musa and other Lillian Goyes, 1954. 1955, they signed the Freedom Charter, and now when you talk about Constitution, they say it emanates from Freedom Charter. They have forgotten about these women. You can have just brought this one because I do even have a printout of this. These are the women who led the Constitution that we have today, so women. But where are they? You look at now the issue of, the issue of Forte. Forte was celebrating 100 years, and there were 100 men, and they forgot about Gertrude Ntlabati. Gertrude Ntlabati, who is the first graduate of Forte in 1921. You will never find, only if you Google, but you'll never find, you look at Bessie Head. Bessie Head, publishing industries is always and has been the men's world. Bessie had to go to Botswana for her book to be published by our own country. But what I'm trying to say, colleagues, the issue that you are doing, I'm putting all those examples because as you are women in academia and you are leading this, and I always say universities you are the what's the word? A conduit. Or an incubator of our future leaders. In all what you do, I think you need to have that integrate issue of ensuring that there's also gender mainstreaming and empowerment in our course of action. Because really, we will find in the queue. Because I was once, let me tell you the last one, there was also one example that I can think of is when I was overlooked because of age. Some years ago when I left, we went for an interview with my colleague, which I was not aware that he also applied for this position. And when I got the position, immediately an HR person called me on the very first day and said, Ms. Chelwana, thank you, you did very well, but it was a deputy director, can you take, we were together with that colleague at Rhodes, and can you take assistant? So I thought maybe I was number 2. And then I said, no, it's okay. When I got there, I'm told that, no, you were number 1. But they considered that Mr. So-and-so, whom you were both lecturers in the same institution, it's because this man has a house. And in Grahamstown, I was in East London, and so he's going to spend more, and he's got a family. Ignoring me as a single parent, who does not even, that's the only, if you look at my CV, the only organization that I stayed for 9 months and I left. Because I realized that that's the only way. You cannot fight because you are overlooked because of age and because of the fact that a man is the man of the house. He has a family. As if as a single parent with kids, I'm not worth it. So these are the kind of issues. Thank you.
My goodness. It's quite clear to see the passion there. I mean, the space is quite evident with Nongosi. She really has been in the heart of the space in government and higher education. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Vusi, I know you also have a lot to share. But I am going to ask you to maybe just share maybe one highlight, in your experience.
Okay. In terms of experience, sure, I share all the sentiments that the previous speakers have shared. So I think the one thing that we don't talk about enough is the toxic femininity, right? So I recently did an interview on radio with a female radio host, and I thought it had gone quite well. But turns out when the interview ended, right, and my conversation with her was cut off, then the listeners listened to her basically slag me on radio without me being there. Then I had my phone ringing like a ticky box in a hostel the whole morning from people who had listened to the end of the interview that I was absent from. And this was a black woman, taking my character down on radio. So we don't ever talk about that because that's probably worse than the masculine toxicity because we expect men to denigrate us. But we don't, I think whenever you walk into a room and you see a sister, your heart almost smiles. You think you're safe. You tend to let your guard down.
Yes.
And you kind of relax a little bit because you feel like you already have a vote in the room. And then something like that happens and it knocks you in a way that nothing else could, right? So to young people, to anybody in studying, I think the thing that we need to learn to do as women for each other is to refuse to be complicit, and sometimes it's actually easier to be complicit. So when the boys give us the playbook and the playbook says, tighten the screws at the jugular, that's what we just do because we want to survive. But if we learn to actually collude with the women as opposed to colluding with the men, things might be different because we are the majority. And I listened to Bettina earlier talking about the women who fluff themselves and put up their boobs and be soft and beautiful and I know it's easier to judge them as weaker, but it's hard to be fighting. Sometimes fighting by putting on the push-up bra and being sexy is actually easier. It's a different kind of fight. So what I want to maybe suggest is understanding that there are many lanes that we can take on this road as women. And we can see the lady who's there being beautiful, sexy, stilettos, doesn't want to stand for everything, falls for everything kind of woman. We see her, we don't judge her, we walk past her, maybe respect her lane. But then we see Imbokodo, the hardcore, right? The one who's looked at as the angry black woman in the room. We support her as well. In fact, we stand by her. And somehow, at some point, there'll be a lane when these converge. And both of these women can be equally respected, in the same space. And for me, that's the holy grail. That's what we need to try and find for ourselves.
Wow, thank you so much, Vusi, for that. Thank you, ladies. I must say, these are tough conversations. You know, I'm sitting here and wondering if am I the best person for this job. These are really tough conversations. And they really bring through a lot of my experiences. And perhaps maybe just to share with the panelists, perhaps I've also experienced a lot of, gender bias. But I mean, I laugh about it now. But a highlight that I have, perhaps maybe one, not necessarily a highlight. At one point, I used to be the only black female in a team of executives. And it would be so hard in that boardroom. It would be so difficult to raise your voice, you know. And at one point, I realized, oh, okay, maybe I need to grow a baritone. You know, perhaps I could be heard better, you know. And at one point, I got really angry. And I remember saying this to a colleague of mine in hindsight now. I should have perhaps learned from your wisdom. But I remember saying in one boardroom meeting, you know, looking at, you know, my colleague, and I remember my boss was in this meeting as well. And I remember looking at the colleague and said, don't you just be fooled by these nails and these heels, because I can. And the whole boardroom just, you know, went dead still. And I remember my boss sitting there not knowing what to do. And I was the only lady, and then he went, well, the lady has spoken. And I thought, only now you realize I'm a lady. But anyway, so I just thought, you know, we go through all these experiences, and it's quite interesting to see, you know, what, you know, where they take us to, you know, and the lessons that we are now all learning. And sometimes you think you're alone, you know, sometimes you think you're alone. And I think hence these conversations are so important. Right, perhaps maybe this leads us well into the next question. And I think earlier on, Vusi, you spoke about, you know, these intersectional issues. You spoke about race, perhaps ethnicity, which I could relate to that a lot. You know, that before I was a young lady, I was called a black young lady, you know. Actually, girl, that's what I was called. But there's culture, you know, there's, you know, disability. There's sexual orientation, which over and above you being a woman, really you put all of that in a pot, creates even more complexities. And you've shared a bit about that. Perhaps could you just maybe give us more detail about how you think, you know, these issues, and firstly how you view them, and how you think we can deal with them. How can we be sensitive to them? Because at that point, they don't only touch on the male looking in, you know, it's also amongst us as women, where you see a fellow woman or lady, and only because she has a different sexual orientation, or only because she's got she belongs to a different race, you start having your own biases as a woman. So could you maybe touch on that, you know, your view, and then I'll ask Bettina to also share a bit on that?
I think we all, as South Africans, it's inevitable that we carry a racial bias, right? Whether we accept it or not is just a fact. The legacy of apartheid has implanted in us this thing that makes us all have that thing about us. We know it because our mothers will say, oh, don't bring back umlungu, you know, to this house, or go travel, you know, be in the world, but don't ever bring the world back home with you. You know, that's the message your dad gives you as you're sent away. So we know, as black women especially, even if you're going into a meeting in any community, anything, you know that you can't wear trousers. You just know that if you want to speak, you have to be carrying a book so that you can be selected as the Nobel secretary, because men don't want to write. You know, so we understand those cultural nuances. We know how to meander around them as black women. But there's something about, if you were to look at it as a almost like Maslow's hierarchy, right? If you looked at it as a hierarchy of inequalities, the first level would definitely be race. And then beyond that, you'd go into all the other, you know, inequalities. But there's something about us as black women where there are so many, we go through the most. There's so much that we have to meander that it's so hard to keep up. First, we were too black, we're too feminine, we're too fat, we're too thin, we're too, we're too talkative, we're too confident. There's so many things that we're expected to adjust ourselves to automatically. And one of the things for me that I've learned, and luckily now I'm in my 40s, so this is that time where apparently you cast everything aside, and you're suddenly allowed to be free. And it's it's that the hardest part about being a black woman has always been never being able to eat the bread, and that's a literal and figurative thing. So I grew up with a mom who would constantly say, even if she was here now, she'd go, "Sit down." Because the whole idea was always packaging yourself for marriage. And if you're packaging yourself for marriage, nobody wants to see the pot belly, so don't allow yourself to slouch. So it was always about posture. It was wear the Spanx so that it sucks your stomach in, So it was always, all of those societal pressures were on you. And then it was, you need to get ready for marriage. And so by the time before you get to 18, you're not allowed to date, but from 18 onwards, suddenly, you must be ready for marriage. And there's nobody who understands that you never learn to date, so how are you ever going to? But the expectation is she must be married by 25. Yes. And you also must have a degree as well within that. So there's academic pressures, there's, and also because we're the first generation to be allowed to get into university, your mother's hopes and dreams are on you. She didn't get the degree, now you must get all the degrees. And she's driving you, fast, but she's made you believe that you want these things as well, right? So you're also on that train, ticking off the list. So it's hard to finally get into your 40s, if you're my generation, and be like, I have no idea. When millennials talk about be your authentic self, you're just like, oh my gosh, who's that? I haven't been my authentic self for 20 years, right? And then I spent years in finance where we were 3 women playing with boys in money. And even the boys didn't allow us to be women. So we wore trouser suits. We also, stood in stilettos because we wanted to be at the same level as they were, because the study said they can't hear you if you're too short. So we got up and we were higher. Then the boys would have these conversations on the golf course, so we took up golfing so that we could be there when these conversations were made. So we adapted and we adjusted. We became covert ops, so much so that we priced ourselves out of the game. Women my age, like me, second failed marriage, right? Yeah. And you realize it's all for naught because you're now so masculine. You've taken on so many of these characteristics just to play with them that you forgot about your femininity, and you've led with a masculinity in every space you've been in. I've just started a Vita pilot in Langa, and the Vita guys, they phoned me up the one day and they say, you've got the highest turnover of employees. We've got 350 stores nationwide, but you have the highest turnover of employees. And when the man said this to me, you should have seen his face. And he was so, like, this was the thing that was going to break me down. And I was like, I'm a black woman. People don't like me off the bat. Like, if you thought I would be upset by not being liked by a guy that froths his milk, like, dude, I'm okay. So we've got to learn to, as women, to not allow the boxes to fit us. And the men who, even if they may think that they're superior to us, they very rarely are. But a person can only really take over your space and command your future if you allow them. And I think as women, we tend to do that. Yeah. We tend to allow, because we're raised to nurture. We're raised to be supportive, And once we get into the habit of saying to each other, because I think for me, what has driven me all these years is my girlfriends. who are harsh critics, like harsher than my mom, who, when I lower myself or minimize myself or quieten myself a little bit, they're like, why are you this person? You are not this quiet person. Why are you allowing yourself to shrink? Be the person that you are. Stand up straight. You're badass. Like, you're a bad chick. Be the bad chick that you are. So we need to be more of that, you know? We need to force ourselves to be around women that see us all the time and help us stand up straight constantly, regardless of the men in the room or the other women who want to shrink around us. It's important for us to be those people.
Wow, thank you, Mbusi. It's amazing because this is what makes us, you know? I mean, that's who we are. That's what really makes us. And I think a lot about how do we, perhaps someone else would say, grow this thick skin. I've learned to shed the thick skin. I've learned to shed the thick skin. I've learned that we don't have to be strong against those inequalities. In fact, perhaps it's an age thing. Maybe it's this whole senior age, you know. I'm also in my 40s, by the way, for those that don't know. And I'm looking forward to be 50, because I'm told at that age, you really just don't, you're just not bothered, you know. I still have a few more years, though, but I mean, I'm looking forward to it. So I just want to know, Bettina, maybe share with us, how do you think we could, well, either grow the skin or shed it? How do we become, you know, how do we deal with these inequalities that are intersectional and then really come, you know, to our table and create more complexities than just the gender bias?
Well, you know, first I should maybe just say I was born in a rural area in the Eastern Cape to a grandmother that was illiterate. I have witnessed incredible violence against women in my communities, amongst my cousins. I have a mother that studied at Tygerberg Hospital to become a registered nurse. While she came back from night duty, so she took night duty in order to ensure that she could cook and clean and do all of those things, and pushed us to be the best that we could be. I don't ever think you should try and either shed your skin or grow a thick skin. I think, I go back to my first statement, I think you've got to confront it where you see it. The second bit is, I mean, if you look at statistics, you'd say that for every 100 men that get promoted in any organization or sector, 86 women get promoted. So you've got a deficit right there. And what that means that if you consider any organization as being a pyramid, it means that the opportunities to move up for the 86 become progressively less and less as you go up. The second bit is that for every man, which I think comes to Nonkozi's point, that gets promoted, on average gets a 6% increase as a consequence of that. And every woman that gets promoted, or every woman, every time she has a child, her remuneration drops by 4%. These are just pure statistics. Now, why is that so? It is because what they're factoring in is that the man is the head of the household. 61% of South African households are female-headed. So here's the thing, though, and I come back to the Women's Charter and the way it has informed our Constitution. We have got very many frameworks that should support us when it comes to our rights as women. It's that these frameworks are ineffectively implemented. And so what's the work I think that we have to do collectively to ensure that we improve those sorts of things? When we're talking about disability, for example, women who are disabled have got even less of a chance of getting a job, because it's how will they get to work, how will they do the work, and all of these sorts of other things. So accommodation where we are becomes incredibly important, but it will be of no consequence if we, who are in those organizations, if we do not actually ask for things to differ. I agree with you, for example, on job interviews. I have had in job interviews to stop an interview where I was a panelist and to say to the candidate, we are going to stop this interview because the question that was just asked of you was discriminatory in nature, and you have a case against this organization of which I am part if I allowed this conversation, this interview to continue. That's what I talk about, having courage in the moment. Even if it means that you're going to talk against something that somebody's going to come back at you and say, how could you have left the organization in that? Because at the end of the day, if I cannot be myself, my ethical self, wherever I am, then that's not the organization where I must be. So I do think that there's a lot of intersectionality around age. I was 35. I always say I'm at the same level that I was at when I was 35. I'm at the level where I am now at the same age when I was 35. And that always came with being the youngest in the room. For the last 16 years, actually, I've not been the youngest in the room, and I'm actually okay with that. But it does come with all of that kind of thing that says, you are too young. How will you manage an older person? How will you manage males? How will you manage people with different sexual orientation? Do you know what? At the end, it all comes down to what are the skills and the competencies that you need in order for you to be effective where you are at. And I think if you are not, then don't. I have declined opportunities in my life because I considered myself not to be appropriate for that opportunity. And that's the thing that I will always say to people. To get too quickly somewhere is sometimes also not good enough, because you simply do not build the skill sets and the competencies that you need, that you will acquire at every level. So also don't rush to be there. And the final thing that I would just say is, don't compete, with other people. Do not compete with a black male or a black female, with a disabled man or a disabled woman, with a young person or with an old person. Compete with yourself. Because you must realize your full potential. When we compete against one another, then what we do is, I've often seen this in organizations. I'm a female in a job, and the only job that people think should be available is the job in which a female or a black person is. As though all of those other jobs are not available or cannot be accessed by us. What we've got to do is, when we stop competing with one another for the crumbs, actually, I think that the loaf of bread becomes available to us. So that's just what I would say, I think, around that issue of course, you will get paid less if you are black. You will get paid less if you're a black woman. You'll get paid less than a black woman if you're a person with disability, irrespective of your race, age, or your gender. And for persons with sexual orientation, I think it's the most heartbreaking thing to have to mask who you are, about not being comfortable enough to say, who is it that I love, or who is it that I choose to be. I actually think, if I think about a young person like Malala, around being able to stand up for what she believes in, if I think about a young person like Greta Thunberg, around being willing to stand up for your belief in, you must surely, when you look at those two examples, have incredible hope for the future. And then I think about this young generation, about being confident in saying, I choose to be binary and not to be defined by the way in which I was born. So I actually have a lot of hope for the future, because there are so many examples of persons with disability, young people, older people, black people, women standing up. But honestly, this is the thing that I would say, be courageous and support one another in everything that you do.
Wow, thank you so much, Bettina. I'm really starting to get comfortable now. Just as we're getting to the end, though, of our session. And I really had a couple of questions to ask, and I think most of them, you've really touched on them, and I think not just to you, but also to Vusi and Nongosi. So I'm looking at my producers, well, I nearly said producers in full, but my committee, they would really want us to start wrapping up. But perhaps in wrapping up, and maybe as a final, point of sharing with particularly the young ladies that are in our, presence today, but who are also live streaming. what would be the one thing, and this is to all of us ladies, what would be the one thing that you think you can say to encourage these ladies on how to deal with gender bias, and let that be in the form of an action step, that as we all move out of here today, we can make a decision that this is what I am going to do as I move out from here. So just one from each of us ladies in the panel, and I want to start with you, Vusi. What would be what would be the one thing? I hope you're not looking at me and going, where's this coming from, and being suspicious. And all what would be that one thing?
Yeah, okay, so definitely less judgment. Be less judgmental of yourself. Definitely, because it will help you travel lighter, but it will also cast less aspersions on other women. Check yourself every time you're thinking, oh my gosh, she shouldn't have worn those trousers, or she's too big for those shoes, or whatever negative speak that you would normally speak to yourself. The moment you're doing it to another sister, just be like, oh my God, I'm doing it again, right? Yeah, judgment, it's the most awful thing, yeah.
Thank you, Vusi, thank you for that.
For me, I would encourage, thank you, Vusi, and I would encourage intergenerational mentoring. When a young woman gets into, whether is academic or support, getting into the entry level, we need to have those networks. Those networks will assist, the ones that are coming, because assist the person to come into those that are living, and those that are entering, they need to have a network. Even if we can have the hair story for Fbms, I think that's very critical. And the second one is that always bring it home, Chair, is that the issue of the cooler. In other words, what's the name is ensuring that you have your own timber. If you are talking about that cooler project, it should be gender sensitive, because even then you realize that it was all these junior lecturers were all men that are very good in SRC, they come in. But the issue, how do you ensure that we mainstream those women that are scared? Because the key issue here is that if we are talking about growing your own timber, where do you start? So these are the key issues. And the last one, Chair, is also to the employers to say, stop. I'm saying we've been talking as women for more than 30 years. Stop this issue of having horizontal approach when you do the issue of gender and women empowerment. It must be both horizontal and vertical, because the very same men that we are talking about, they are in the leadership, they are in the helm. They should be part of it. Next time we bring them here, they must account. They must share them, because if you don't bring, it's like taking your girl child and talking to her alone. The boy child will go and rape and do all sorts of issues, because you have left this girl, this boy child unattended. So the key issue is the same as at work. Don't leave these young women and young men alone, because they will be sharing, trying to do such kind of things. And the key issue is intergenerational mentoring, coaching, forming our own networks. As Fbms, I'm challenging you to have the hair story network issue as part of the take out of this issue, because we are having all these meetings meetings and talks, and so tomorrow is business as usual. What is the takeouts? Let's also look at the takeouts in order to, as you go up, bring a young woman along. Yes.
Thank you so much. And Ngosi, we are aware that you sit right next to the VC. So we'll rely on you for accounting and bringing the VC to the next session. Bettina, over to you. Last words?
Maybe just shortly, I think 3 things. The first, equip yourself with knowledge. If you don't know what the pay range is for the position that you are in or the position that you're applying for, you are going to undersell yourself so that you can ask for what you are due. The second bit that I would probably say is put up your hand. I have got so many instances where males write and say, could I please join that project? Would you mind if I volunteered on the following? So please put up your hands, because somebody else is very often not going to do that for you. And I see that men do that all the time. The third one that I would say, and I want to come to the point that you've actually raised, which is find yourself a network of men and women who believe in gender equity, and see what you can do to work in that network. And importantly, I think, seek a mentor for yourself. Yeah. And then the fourth thing, I'm going to do a plug here. In your organization, if they have not yet done the UN's Women's Empowerment Principle Gap Analysis, it's called the WEPS, please have them do that, because there is such incredible toolkits available through the UN Global Compact. So if your organization does the Women's Empowerment Principle Gap Analysis, it will gain access to those tools, and it will help you to chart a way forward in a very systematic way to eradicate gender disparities.
Wow, thank you so much, Bettina. Ladies, another round of applause for our panelists. Now, I really only have a minute or two, and can I just ask, my bosses up there to really forgive us, because I don't think it would be good for us to end this session without taking just one, at the most 2 questions from the ladies. I'm aware that we are live streaming. There's probably even more questions, in the live stream, but we can really only take 2 questions at the moment. So can I perhaps maybe just see by a raise of hand, anyone with a question for any of the panelists today? Oh, thank you.
Okay, I think it's on. Hello, so my voice is a bit shaky. I have some flu, so I'll try not to raise it. I think the speakers really shared a really remarkable conversation, and I do agree with Imbogodo. Sorry, I'll call you Imbogodo. I always say those events are really amazing, but we always leave the elephant out. It's like we're always alone and discussing, and they never know, really. And but my question is not based on that. My question is I would like all the speakers to answer. When would they think of the time where they themselves projected negatively to another woman, and if they ever apologized? Because I think the problem we have basically as society, we can eliminate ourselves from the being part of the problem and seeing other people as problem. But the most key thing I think that was liberating for me is when one of my high school bully came later on and said, actually, Lolita, I was wrong. Even though I never realized that from that time, it was something that I carried on. I looked at myself the way she projected myself. But eventually when she came to say, I'm sorry, it literally I was able to let go of all the fighting that I had. So I think sometimes so the question is, in an instant, when do we remember? It could be a cousin, a friend, the time that we felt like ourselves were part of that problem. We ourselves were part of that judgmental. I think I like when she said, the minute you think, oh, she's too big for that, you must rebuke yourself. But sometimes we easily see other places, but we don't see ourselves as that. But so maybe you will not think of the situation where yourself felt like I contributed in that. Because I always say, we easily say, oh, these guys are a problem. Yeah. But if it's our friends and our brothers and our sisters and our uncles and our best friends, we see the girl being a problem. So in those incidents, what actions did you guys take? And what actions do you think the rest of us that are sitting here could also take in moving forward? I don't know if the question is fine.
I think that question was very clear. Thank you so much for the question. Allow me to direct this question to Uvus. Perhaps you can just handle that question for us. But before we go into responses, can we take one more question? Do we have any from live streaming? If not, we just take another one from the floor. Any last question? And my goodness, it comes from the only gentleman in the room. So we really have to give this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam MC. My name is Wajdi. Perhaps not a question, a comment. Vusi, thank you. We spoke. Vusi is my colleague. We've been together, working together for a while. She said, just coming to Women's Day. I'm like, I want to join. She's like, okay, come. Wow. I always think of myself as a feminist. Two powerful women, two mothers I had. I'm quite open to struggles of women. And then Vusi said to me the other day, do you think of the menu for dinner every day? Well, I don't think of that. Well, your wife thinks of that every day. Besides working, besides being a mother, besides being a wife, being a mate, she's thinking of how she cares for you. And that's that unconscious bias we have as men. And that really knocked me, and positively, let me say that. I want to echo what the lady said about men should be here, man. But we should apply to be here. We should write to say, this is why we want to attend. Not to say, oh my God, women are being dramatic. No, to sit and learn and humble ourselves to say, I get these challenges. I get what you're going through. I think lastly, the world is increasingly complicated. And I wanted to take from your word sectionality. I was like, what are you saying? And I just Googled it quickly. It's increasingly complicated. We want to drive profits. We need to look after planets. We need to develop people, but yet we still need to do so many other things. I think men grapple with that. Often we grapple, and we're not humble enough to say, yeah, women do it all the time. So we're at that stage now where we need to get over ourselves as men and say, let's actually go and sit and listen more to what women have to say. But listen, but really listen to learn, and not just to tick a box. Take this, the fact that you make. You see, I often in boardrooms, and we just sit there and you realize, yeah, this brother just want to tick a box. He's not actually there to listen. You know, he wants to get, and he wants to get there to I don't know what. But women get it, and they get it far deeper and quick. And I think it's a blessing, but as we've heard today, it's also a curse to a large degree. So thank you very much, Vusi. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, so over to Vusi to just maybe respond, and then we then ready to close the session.
Oh, okay. So your question was about, I'm a mom to two young girls, and I think it's probably where I get to see how negatively I impact certain environments is in my daughters. So my personal negative speak, whether it was an exchange that I had in a store with another black person, or whether, I mean, I run stores, so I'm in retail. And so whether it was my kids watching me, having that conversation, and then speaking back that kind of language to each other. One is 14 and the other one is 11. So I'm right in the trenches, right? And so I get to see the worst of the teenager being mean to the tween, who's also fighting all kinds of things. So I think it's in every day. And every day I'm finding myself having to apologize to them because I look at my mom, who I'm now living with again after many years, and I'm realizing that I'm actually the worst thing. My mom. And so every day I'm having to apologize to my girls constantly because I just can't live with what I'm seeing of myself. But have I gone back to somebody that I've harmed, possibly, in my clawing up the ladders? No. I haven't had I don't know what to even call it, the presence of mind to be able to go back and do that. There are many carcasses in this journey, because in the battle to be the top in finance, it isn't a nice space. You know, it is mired with carcasses of people you had to trample on to get to the top. So maybe this could be the platform that I use to just send a public apology, because honestly, I've never even thought about that, to be honest. But thank you for putting that on the radar, because no matter how much coaching you do, no matter how much, and I've got a personal coach, I have therapists, you do all of those things. You think you're doing a 360 evaluation of yourself constantly, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't have a boss or a team really, apart from Wajdi and a few other gentlemen who aren't, nasty enough to tell me when I'm being a bitch, right? And so it's up to my daughters, to give me that evil eye every now and then that kind of pulls me back in. So thank you for putting another thing on the list of things that I need to do better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, ladies, we are at the end of our discussion, and I must say this is the best way to really end it, ending with an apology, not only to others that we could have impacted in a way that we really maybe thought, or that could be less ideal, but also to ourselves. When we allow these biases to affect us and impact on us. And yeah, thank you for that question. It was really just quite forcing us to reflect, Thank you for that. Well, perhaps in closing, can I ask us all to stand? And I think in the spirit of our theme today, and also by the International Women's Day theme, can I all ask us to cross our hands and repeat the theme for Women's Day? Hashtag break the bias. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you.
Okay.
So we are at the end of the panel discussion, but we're not at the end of we are not at the end of the event, ladies. We were just completing opera, Ladies, on a serious note, can I hand over to our MC to tell us further what to expect?
Firstly, I think as the, I don't want to say the 40-year-old, let's just say in the range of Generation X, because that's where the majority of us are, we want to thank our guest speakers. And I actually want to bring in, and I want to have permission from the bosses who are not here to say, hashtag kick ass. But hang on, before we go, we would first like to call up Sissy Vusi. No, but can I just, yes, the camera has to contact.
Yes, this is a thank you from us.
Smile. Say kick ass.
Kick ass. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. So sorry.
Thank you, you're so kind. No, Sissy, don't go away. We're going to do all of the guest speakers.
Okay, great.
So now that I know who you are, I'm almost too afraid to say Tannie Engelbrecht, but I will say Mrs. Engelbrecht because I don't want to call you on your name because I am so inspired. That story that you told, and obviously we all know each other's stories, but wow, I had shivers because I can relate to a few of the narratives. And I am so proud of you. You are such a wonderful person. And to wear pink and to be proud of who you are, regardless of where you come from. I mean, that is so amazing. So that's why I can't call you on your name. So, Mrs. Engelbrecht, please can you come forward to our new CEO of Wholesale and Retail Seat. I'm promoting you. And then, of course, last but not least, our most beautiful director of transformation. And colleagues, I must say to you, one day, and I'm going to share this story more. So one day I'm watching CTV and I'm seeing there is a collaboration of people in Cape Town. And here I see Ma standing there shouting at everyone on television. I was shocked. I know another celebrity, not just Caitlin. So, colleagues, what we don't know is the amount of work that she does behind the scenes. And, you know, driving the woman agenda from a director level is never easy. But Martha, on behalf of all of our CPUT sisters, we want to thank you and say, please don't go just yet. I know that you have obviously read the news flash that Ma is also the acting dean of students. So now you have an added responsibility of the 34,000 Takalanis that need your help. But at this point, Ma, I'm hoping we're not going to be reprimanded for this because now we are kicking ass. But we definitely have a new female VC in the making, I think. We're just putting it out there, colleagues, because if you don't have positive projection, you never know what's going to happen. So over to you, to our CEO of Wholesale and Retail, Sita.
This should do the trick with the added responsibility.
Yes, yes. So we are not finished yet. We have at least another 10, 20 minutes to go. So I want to ask, do you want to have a leg stretch? Do you want to have a leg stretch? Do you want to have a little bit of a break? Because we have the very talented and dynamic Ortem Callahan that needs to come and give her spoken word. And she is very serious about what poetry and women and words have in mind. So you can now decide, do you want to have a leg stretch or do you want to go over? Oh, so you want to, excellent. So colleagues, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to our own alumni, our beautiful, multi-talented Ortem Callahan.
Thank you, Liz. I actually didn't do a sound check, so I hope I'm okay. I just want to say before I start that I would like to give a graceful thank you to Ms. Richards for always believing in me and seeing my talent and putting me out there. I'm so happy to be here. I also want to give recognition to a couple of music artists that have inspired the poem. You will hear me sing a little bit, but I'm not good as Caitlin. I'm not as good. Caitlin's the best. She's the bomb. Anyway, just to Harvard reference, I made use of a, because it's very important, I made use of a line from one of Kanye West's songs. You know Kanye West? From the Fugees, you'll hear me sing a line or two, and from Bob Marley as well. So, without further ado, all right, please, guys, I may pause a bit. It's my first live performance. So, yes. Here we go. I may be beautifully ruined, but I didn't pick this life. It picked me. Every day that I'm not dead in the ground, I walk around with a hole in my chest, oxygen suppressed. Yes, trauma does not breed strength, but it has become my friend. My purity was stripped of me, a victim of iniquity. No one has ever asked me what it felt like to be me. Still alive, but fearful for my life because I was born a woman. It must irk you to know that I think I deserve the right to be your equal. I'm appealing to the men I make uncomfortable. All you see when you look at me is my robustness. Through reforms, let's help to readjust this. We can't afford the youth to die through your redundance. I'm a woman who just wants justice. Stop it with your reluctance. Let's sit down and rediscuss this. You know, it's my substance that makes you eat the words you thought you'd use to crush me. You barricade women into believing they're not enough, see? Knowing how powerful we can be when it's just us, we, the women here today, and all the pretty big girls with natural bodies and regular jobs who are still winning. Hearing about my accolades must be so thrilling. Have you contributed to the cause, or are you willing? Tomorrow may never come for us to still suffer in silence. That's why I'm using this opportunity to fill you with my wiseness. The world that man has made is filled with too much of a crisis. I may be the voice of the voiceless, but I gotta change your mind first. We've been begging to make manifest the glory of God through God's righteousness, but now we must demand the chance to come and spice things up. I don't get paid enough to tell you twice, so I'm gonna tell you once. Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. I penned the paper that defines what the future's gonna be like. Yes, I know I said trauma should not breed strength, but that's what it did. I figured something's gotta give. Trauma gave our ancestors the strength to break their chains. At some point, these men have got to change. And let us take charge, and let women take the reins. Give us presidency so we can change the game. We'll drop the petrol price by fixing all the trains. Banyana, proving the point I'm trying to make. I've been working so hard to make it legal for you, the future, to be great. Take heed of this message and lead the way. Take us to new heights. Break the bias. Be bright. Bob Marley said, no woman, no cry. Even when we are tired, even when we are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night, yeah? To the woman behind the scenes, a beautiful reflection of God's heart for me. Be ready, even during those difficult times, because we know that one day, everything's gonna be all right. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
I think you have another job. My job is now definitely threatened because you will be an excellent MC.
Sorry, I have to do this. Ms. Tim, can you please come up here? And I'm sorry for all of this emotion, but Otem, you're absolutely amazing. Every word you speak, every single time I call on you, Otem is a retention officer. She's been a tutor, mentor. She has come out for Ms. Nkosi all the time. She rises to the challenge all the time, and she has many challenges in her life. And she's just one amazing woman. So Tem, I'm sorry, I was just distraught with emotion at the back and filled with joy. So thank you very much for making this a fabulous Women's Day. I'm so sorry I hijacked this.
You're not hijacking, Mandy. You're kicking ass. I like that. So yeah, the hierarchy is not all here today. So I'm definitely going to use this hashtag. I've written down all of the hashtags, so by the way. So yes, I'm on a schedule. So I'm going to hand over to Andiswa. So we're first going to do the vote of thanks. Then we're going to have the choir, and then Taryn wants to end off with all of the spot prizes so that you have some build up and some enthusiasm that you on MS Teams are not going to have, unfortunately. So over to you.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, mine is very, very short and quite an exciting one. Just to say thank you so much, firstly, for looking absolutely gorgeous on this beautiful day. And hopefully those at tuning in from home or at the office, I hope you also, didn't disappoint us. You look the part. So please agree with me, like literally, even if I have to influence and be biased a little bit, agree with us that the team pulled off a world-class execution. No, you gotta agree with us there. So to the team behind the scenes, and but more than anything, the speakers, I think the selection of the speakers today, they over-delivered. And one thing that was common is that they agreed with one of our mottos or values, that's being bold. Like the discussion was like extremely bold, exactly what we're looking forward to. So colleagues, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. To our special guests, thank you so very much. And to the Dean in absentia, we want to say a special thank you to him. And for being bold and being one of the very few men to praise this event. Thank you to our artists, and of course, thank you to the hotel school team. They put it all together. We had loads and loads of support behind the scene from that team. And of course, we've got the choir and our artists, that spoken word. Thank you so much, and the music. Thank you, colleagues. I won't take much of your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.
So colleagues, while we are going to give the choir time to set up quickly, there are spot prizes and there are no numbers under the seats.
Hi everyone, I'm back. Okay, let's get into this. I don't hear anyone shouting, me. Nobushle. Lobondo. Woo, 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 woo. Read it, yes. Yeah. Great stuff. Next up, Faida Mosam. Hope you enjoy. Last one, and I say this, last one, please don't haunt me afterwards and ask, have you got more spot prizes? Rabia Lau. So this prize, just know, what's in here, it's real. Very real, very real. Thank you so much. It's the choir. Okay, choir's ready. Thank you.
imagine, these are not the students that want at-risk interventions, Prof. Scholz. These are the students who have cum laude. Doesn't it warm your heart to know that we are really producing the cream of the crop? And we are now done with our program, ladies, but for all of you here and on MS Teams, I think that is the final message. Whether you are a mother, a sister, an academic, admin staff, you are the cream of the crop. Thank you for coming and sharing the day with us. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being proudly you. Most importantly, love each other. I think from all of our different guest speakers, that was the message. Kick ass and love each other. But colleagues, so thank you for all of you on MS Teams. Thank you for all of you here. And my boss says that I need to coordinate you in order to have a group photo. Now, it is a little bit chilly outside, so I'm going to ask you to nicely coordinate here in front so that we can please have our guest speaker still on the seat. And after that, you are going to be bedazzled by the beautiful hotel school cuisine. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you very much, MS Teams. Bye-bye. There is a wonderful gift. No, wait, we must take more photos because quality assurance is not finished yet. So can the artists, our esteemed artistical crew, please come to the front so that you can be handed over your token of appreciation. So ladies, can we have a round of applause for Caitlin Krokamp? You're taking a photo. And our spoken word lady of many words, beautiful Ortem Callahan. Woo!